starting at 4:30 a.m.
It may be March Madness in the world of basketball, but for lawmakers in Texas, it's only halftime. We're midway through the 140-day session, so how are we doing? Who are the most valuable players? We break it all down with our roundtable, Brian Sweeney from Texas Monthly, Corey McLagan from Reuters, and Mike Ward from the Austin American-Statesman. Plus a look at the long-lasting fight over water between Texas and our neighbor to the south.
Now, in-depth coverage of the Texas legislative session. In session, in depth.
Good morning and welcome to a special halftime edition of In Session In Depth. I'm Josh Hinkle. We are 77 days into the 2013 legislative session. There are only 140 days total, so now is the time when lawmakers really get down to business. So far, they've been tackling plenty of big issues. Here's our scorecard. Water has been one of the most talked about issues facing the state. Lawmakers will work toward a water infrastructure bank on the House floor as early as this week. Coming up later in the show, we'll take a look at the water feud brewing between Texas and Mexico. On the guns front, several school security bills have popped up. There's an open carry bill working its way through the Capitol, as well as laws aimed at training teachers how to use guns in the event of a shooting. Plus, there's a push to have school marshals and allow guns in college classrooms. Lawmakers are also acting on several health issues, including paying the Medicaid bill from last session and increased mental health funding. Finally, the fight continues to restore funding to public education after the $5.4 billion cut in 2011. Also a push to expand charters and a plan to pull back on testing. Current state law requires Texas high school students to pass 15 core exams to graduate. So far, we've also seen some standouts in the House and Senate. These are the lawmakers who've had a big impact and moved major legislation. Our first MVP, Austin Democrat Kirk Watson. This session, the senator has fought to increase the punishment in hit-and-run cases. He's also been a leading voice for the University of Texas Medical School in Austin, plus more funding to Bastrop County in the wake of recent wildfires. Next, our education MVPs, Senators Wendy Davis and Dan Patrick have been some of the biggest players on the fight over schools. Davis has been perhaps the loudest voice for restoring money cut from the budget in 2011. She's also a possible candidate for governor in 2014. Meanwhile, Patrick is the Senate Education Chair. He's pushing classroom reform and increasing the impact of charter schools. Finally, Representative Alan Ritter is behind a state water plan. He's calling for a $2 billion bank for infrastructure projects. As the House Natural Resources Chair, he's been able to get the plan to the House floor quickly. Several new members have certainly made a splash in Texas politics these first few months. Representative Jason Villalba and Senator Donna Campbell are our rookies of the half. Villalba has fought for increased school security. His bill would pave the way for school marshals. That's armed covert staff members trained to protect during an attack. Meanwhile, on the Senate side, Campbell is co-author of an abortion bill now under debate. It would require abortion providers to meet the same health and safety standards as an outpatient surgical hospital. As for the play of the game, the only requirement for the legislature constitutionally is to pass a budget. This week, the full Senate passed its version, $195.5 billion in spending over the next 2 years, putting $1.4 billion back into schools that was cut after last session. House budget writers passed their version out of the committee this week with $193.8 billion in spending, putting $2.5 billion back into schools. This version should make it to the House floor on April 4th. Then lawmakers will craft a final budget from both proposals in a joint conference committee before the legislature adjourns May 27th. Coming up, our roundtable will weigh in on what's happened in the first half of the session. What topics will lawmakers tackle and who will win out when In Session In Depth returns.